Oh, it's gone really bright. Hello. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thank you so much for joining me all. I'm just going to adjust the lighting. Hopefully this is all going to go okay with all the technical issues and that you can hear me all right. Please say hello in the comments if you're here and if you can hear me okay. I can see that there's a couple of you already. Hi Kezia, hi Christine. I'm so glad you could join me. Oh cool, okay, I can see some messages coming in, so hopefully that's a good sign. Thank you very much for confirming. Hi everybody, hello. Oh, it's so nice to see so many people. There is a slight delay, so if you write a comment or a question, I might be a bit delayed to get back to you. But thank you so much for coming. I hope you're all doing well. Today's live stream is a celebration of reaching 50,000 on Instagram and 7,000 here on YouTube, which are numbers that I never expected to reach, and I'm really, really grateful for all of you. So I wanted to do a painting live stream just to celebrate, and hopefully you can paint along with me, or you can just have me on in the background to chat. You can use the chat box to talk along with us. I know that there's definitely a few familiar faces in there, so that's really lovely to see. Now I've got this spread open just because I needed to focus my camera, but we do have two references today. I'm going to be sharing them on screen, and they're also in the description box if you want to see them bigger. We're going to be starting with a landscape, and then we're moving on to this very fun little chicken reference, which I haven't put a timer on, but we are doing the landscape for 45 minutes, so we'll see how that goes. I can see so many of you saying hello. Thank you so much for being here. As I said, you can chat in the box. If you have any questions, pop them in there, and I've also got a couple of questions from the question box I put on my Instagram stories. But I think without further ado, I'm going to start painting, and I'm going to get my gouache out. So I'm going to put our reference on screen. So this is what we're going to be painting, this really lovely peaceful scene. I'm going to try and amp up the colours. I think it's sunset, and I really want to make it a bit pinker at the bottom by the horizon. I'm working in my Royal Talons sketchbook today. Now, because at the moment I'm really interested in layering and mixed media, this sketchbook sometimes struggles a little bit. I'll show you over here. You can see, like, from my nasturtium piece, it's kind of come through. But that's fine because I'm going to work over it, and this is a working sketchbook, so I'm not too worried about that, but I will put a piece of paper in between just to try and stop it from rubbing onto the artwork. One of the questions I did have, which was from Lukuma Rock, was where to find big sketchbooks. This is the only big sketchbook that I've got. This is an A4 Royal Talons, and if you've been on my channel before, you'll know Royal Talons is one of my favourite sketchbook brands just because they're really affordable, so I'm not precious in my sketchbook at all, so it feels like I can just create and play. Sometimes with the more expensive sketchbooks I get a little bit worried that, you know, I'm going to not use it in the way that I feel like it should when it's that price, which isn't a great mindset, but that's why I like these ones so much. The paper is ivory, so it's off-white, although the colour balance on my camera is showing it as white. But that's definitely something to factor in. Oh, hello to the people who've just joined. I'm just getting my paints ready. I just wanted to move this across so you can actually see what I'm doing, but even with two desks I feel like I don't have a big enough desk. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bit of gouache. I'm basically going to use all the media. So I'm a mixed media artist and I love to layer different things. But for this really smooth gradient on the sky, I'm going to use my gouache. And then my new favourite art material at the moment is the acrylic paint pens. So I've got this tin which is filled with paint pens that I've mixed myself with my own colours, and I've also got a few that are pre-done. So I'm going to use those as well to try and create the texture, and we're just going to have fun. I'm a big believer in just enjoying what you're doing and not worrying about the end result, which I know can be a little bit tricky. But I really just want this to be really playful and a really relaxed stream. So I hope that if you are painting along, then we'll do this together. So these are the colours that I'm going to be using for the sky. I'm going to keep the greens, I think with my paint pens. So I haven't set the timer yet, but I will in a minute just to give you a heads up. And I think when I come in with more texture and things, I'm going to use my Neo colours. I'm also going to play with the dough and ink tints, which I know a lot of you are interested in. Hi, oh, it's so nice to see so many of you from like all around. We've got some US people. I know we've got Hannah from Singapore, from Belgium. That's so cool. It's such a big number to have reached, so I'm really grateful to have you all with me. Now, it's quite grey here in the UK, so I'm going to try and fix our lighting and we'll see as we go. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to set our timer. So like I said, we've got 45 minutes. If that's too short for you, then I have put the reference down below if you want to work on it for longer. Totally up to you. Obviously I do like to work quite quickly and I'm hoping things will dry in time. So I'm just going to get my timer on the watch. And one of the things I try and do is to keep an eye on the time. So I will try and double check when we're halfway. I'm going to start our 45 minutes now. Oh, we've got Julie from the south of France. Hi, Sketchers and Scrubs. Sorry I haven't said hello to everybody individually. Okay, so I have my tea over here, so I need to remember not to dip my paintbrush in that because I do have my water, which is for that purpose. I'm going to try and keep my palette on screen as well. And then, yeah, I'm just going to get going because 45 minutes it disappears in a flash, especially when we're on a timer. I find that timers go like double speed when you're recording. So I'm going to try and pick I'm going to use this brush and I'm just going to start and lay down my colours. You can put a sketch down first, depends on how you prefer to work. I prefer to just sort of wing it, so I'm not putting a sketch down first, but I'm starting with the blue, which is usually my go-to just to try and keep it really clean. Oh, Sketchers and Scrubs painted with the same reference. It's a really nice one, isn't it? I was debating this one and a second one, which I put on Instagram stories today, because I picked out that church scene yesterday and I thought that would be really nice, and then this morning I was like, oh, but this one would be really nice, and I'm indecisive with stuff like that, so I'm glad that you could all decide for me. Let's see if it's better without the light. I'm going to take the light off for now, just so you can see the colour a little bit better. I'm just going to start by putting down a base layer of this blue. And then we'll add in our gradients. And at the moment I'm really interested in texture, so I'm not going to try and keep it like, you know, like a perfect gradient. For me, I just enjoy putting the paint down and embracing the texture that brings. So I'm just going to work my way down the page. Now I'm going to add the clouds on top. I don't want to sort of go around it at this point. I'm going to do another layer for that really nice big white cloud on top there. And if you do have any questions, let me know. I'm going to answer another one that I got from my Instagram questions box whilst I just fill in this. I do want to make note of where the horizon is, which will probably be about here. So TJ asked me, do I have a big goal in my art journey that I'm working towards, e.g. 15 years? Now I'm not really a big planner person in terms of in the future, because I honestly have no idea. So the very short answer is no. I just kind of wing it and see where it takes me, rather than, I don't really have like, I want to be able to have done this in 15 years. And even in like with yearly goals, I really struggle with those. So I don't really know where I'm going, but I kind of just, you know, seeing what happens and just going with that, if that makes sense. I'm just adding in some of my yellows and a little bit of the red and the flesh pink. I really want to amp this up a little bit, so I usually do up the saturation, which is definitely what I'm doing here, but I also don't want to make it too muddy. And it says 45 minutes is a luxury for this reference. That's what I thought. I'm being kind. Usually, like on my Patreon, I'll give us really short timings, but it has been quite nice to have longer time, especially for when I'm adding on my texture, and very much so when I'm using acrylic paint because it needs more time to dry. So I think that's my sky done. Like I said, I haven't put in the clouds, but I'm going to wait until this is dry, and then I'll add that on top. You can see the paper is buckling a little bit. I've got a lot of media on the other side, but this is just a, you know, it's not like a perfect sketchbook, so that's fine by me. Now I'm going to get my paint pens. Oh, thanks Sketches and Scrubs, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's the palette cleanser email, is the one that goes out to all my Patreons at the end of each month. I'm just going to mix up this. You can see that it's split, so I just have to mix it up, but I'm going to pop myself on mute so I don't deafen you. Okay, so these are the 3 green shades that I've mixed up. These are Montana acrylic markers. They were empty, and then I've filled them with these shades, which I use a lot, and I've been really enjoying using them recently. They just make it painting feel really easy. So if you have used acrylic markers before, if you've used any Posca pens, which are like this one's like the smaller nib, but you kind of pump it to get the colour through, and it's the same thing with the Montana. The only difference with these is these are the ones that I mixed myself. Oh, hi Katria, thanks for coming. So I'm going to just start by putting down my colours, and this is like the point where it might look messy, and it will, and you kind of just have to push through and believe that it's going to come together, because it does, I promise. It's just a case of trusting the process, and I've found that for all of my art for so many years. And I used to not push through, and I used to get disheartened, but now I've learned that the more I add, the more texture I build up, then the better it becomes, and I learn how to work with it, and I can build up layers and layers and make it look better. Now this one is, I want to adjust the green because it's not quite my shade of green, this one. So I've had a question, what do I use to mix the colours? So the Montana refills, they come like this, and then you just squeeze them straight into the pen tubes, or you can do it in a little container and then put it in, but I just squeezed these directly into the markers, and then I mixed it that way. So I don't love this green. It's very lurid for me, but I am going to come in with this one. As you can see, they're a little bit messy, so I'm kind of like, I'm not really a messy artist. I'm embracing my messy phase of art, it feels like, which is exciting because I am enjoying it, and like, I would never have used to use my fingers for stuff like this, but I really enjoy the texture that it gives. So I'm just blocking in the basic shapes. How I use the Tombow markers. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm not using the brush pens today, but I did just put up a YouTube video about the brush pens. They can be somewhat tricky to use, especially when it comes to paper breaking. Yeah, they do tend to pill the paper, especially if you're like layering things on top. Generally, I think that's where it struggles. I think it depends on the stock as well. because obviously on the Royal Talents it doesn't hold mixed very wet medium very well, so it's the same with brush pens. I think a thicker stock would be a little bit better for them, but I use them as a base, so even if it does like pill the paper, I work on top of it, so I kind of end up covering it up with pencils and Neocolors and things like that, and try and just use it for my base. But they're really easy to use, and I think they're really good for like taking with you if you are drawing outside. Okay, it's looking very, very bright. There's not much texture in here at the moment, so we will add that in as we go. I think I'm going to try and mix some of this in. I'm just trying to create a bit of texture. And like I can feel the paper pilling a little bit already, but we're going to work on top of that, so it's okay. Oh, no problem at all. So I haven't done the path, and then basically all I'm doing at this point, let me put the lids back on these, is putting down all of the basic block shapes. I've really like condensed it down to these shapes. I've made it very simplified, even with the colours. And then this is how I like to work, and then I'll go on top just to make it a bit more textured, a little bit more realistic. I really do want to try and capture that light, which I haven't done yet, but this is I have to remember, this is just the first layer, so this isn't the end result, you know. We're going to continually work into this. The sky isn't completely dry. I did just put a big blob of green on there. I'm going to put in our tree as well. So I'm mostly thinking about what things I do want to include and what things that are important for me to include. And I'm just going to sort of mix different things together. I don't have a set way of, oh, I've used my gouache, now I can't come back to it. Generally when I work with mixed media, I'll come back to things and I'll add things on later on. So I want this grass to be a bit more yellow, so I'm just coming on top of the acrylic paint with my gouache. I know that some people would only use gouache, but I really enjoy the flexibility that comes from mixed media. Danielle's using watercolour and watercolour paper. It's taking too long to dry. Yeah, I think with wet mediums like that, it's definitely a point to factor in, and I think that's why I'm not usually a watercolour artist, because I'm so impatient when I want to paint. I want to just do it, you know. But if you need longer for this reference, we have got 33 minutes left. Oh, it's just under 33 and a half, so you're welcome to come back to it later, because the reference I have linked down below. So this is our very messy base layer. I definitely want to include the tree, and I definitely want to include the fence. I could even add in a little house over here, but next up I think I want to do the clouds, because the clouds are behind the tree, so I don't want to come in later to add in the clouds once I've done the tree, if that makes sense. I'm trying to do it in the layers that it is in real life. So I'm going to grab my white gouache. How do I select my colours? That is a good question, because I generally just work on intuition. I definitely have a colour palette that I tend to use, and I tend to stick to the most. I can share, I definitely have a video on YouTube with my favourite colours, which is basically my palette. So that's on my channel. That's called My Favourite Art Supplies. That's quite a good one to see for the colours that I usually go for. But it does depend on the reference, and generally I will brighten them up, up the saturation to what they actually are. And this is my favourite blue, so the blue doesn't really match this blue at all, but it's kind of just become my go-to colour palette. I'm just doing the gouache on top here and being quite loose with my brush, and I'm not trying to match it completely. I'm just sort of looking at the reference to get a suggestion of them. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't really answer the colour question because it just becomes quite natural for me, but I would recommend checking out that art supply video that I've got on my channel for like my basic colours that I use all the time. Okay, so just layering this in. I know this will be covered a little bit by the tree that we add. I might fix our colours as well in a minute because the camera is making it a little bit bright. So slowly we're going to make this look better because so far this is not looking how I want it. I do want to add in a line back here. I'm just grabbing a pencil, so I'm using this, which one should I use? Maybe I'll use this one first. This is the Derwent Inktense. I'm just going to start adding on some of these lines towards the back. So again, I am just sort of working forwards. I've done the really big shapes and now I'm moving on to the smaller ones. Then I'll add the tree in and work that way. Another question that I had on Instagram was, where do I get my inspiration? I would say mostly from nature. Obviously that's my favourite thing to draw, and like going on walks and taking lots of pictures and seeing all the different flowers and all the lovely things around. So like I do enjoy walking. I'm lucky enough to live by the forest, so that's generally where most of my inspiration comes. And if I'm really stuck, I'll look back through my camera roll and paint something from there. And I just find that's what inspires me the most, like nature. Sometimes it's birds, sometimes it's insects, but generally those are like my biggest inspirations. And yeah, going for walks and trying to get outside definitely helps. What is my favourite colour for sketching? So this was a question that I also had on Instagram. So I had Holly and Heather ask me what Holly asked me what my favourite colour was, and Holly and Heather asked me my favourite medium, which is like the hardest question ever. So I'm going to start with favourite colour. For painting and sketching, I would say it's probably green because I use it in so many of my sketches, and obviously I enjoy painting nature and landscapes, and so green is a big one. For me it would be, let me just check the colour. This one is the Oxide of Chromium green. That's my favourite green to paint with, mixed with a bit of cadmium yellow hue. But it's really hard to just pick one, because if I was picking my favourite near colour, it would probably be this one, which is the sky blue, which I really enjoy using for final touches. But in actual real life, I prefer, my favourite colour is yellow. And I find that a really hard question, because how do we choose? I always use so many colours. But I would say green for my art. And then in terms of my favourite medium, if I had to pick one medium for the rest of my life, I would probably pick gouache. Just because that's where I've started, and let me put the light on. Sorry. Yeah, that's where I began. And like that's where my mixed media started, and although my joy comes from adding in stuff on top, like pencils and near colours, if I had to really just pick one, I would be gouache. Even though I really hope that never happens, because all my joy comes from adding on all the textures and the details. There's been a few things that I've done just with gouache, and like I said, that's where I started before I then discovered mixed media. So I'd say that's like my OG. So I'm just going to start adding in all these textures. I put the light on, so hopefully that will be a bit more easy to see, because this is where it really starts to come to life. And I'm also going to start putting in these Inktense blocks. Hi Roberta. Roberta asks, what sketchbook am I using? I am using a Royal Talens. This is the 21 by, I think it's 20, 30? It's the kind of A4 one. So it's the one up from the 13 by 21. And maybe it's 29.7. It's just under A4. This is the, like, my A4 sketchbook that I reach for all the time. I've only got a little bit left, so I'm going through it quickly now that I'm moved on to like paint pens, because I'm really enjoying working bigger to work up all these textures. So I don't think it will be long before I can do a sketchbook tour of this one, and I'm really excited to film that. But generally, I'd say 80% of the time I'm working in Royal Talens sketchbooks, unless I let you know otherwise. So I'm just sort of smudging. I'm definitely embracing the mess. If you are painting along, let me know how you're getting along. I know that there's some watercolour artists here, and what medium you're using. As a time check, we've got 25 minutes left. So for me, that's cool, that's good. I was starting to panic that I was spending too long on this bit, but I really enjoy it. I think adding in all these details makes such a big difference to the final piece. So I'm going to continue just working my way and adding in all these little bits. And I feel like 25 minutes is plenty of time. Touch wood. I might regret saying that. Oh, thanks, Erica. So I want to make this green nice, and maybe I've made that a little bit too yellow. But if I make a mistake, I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to let it dry, and then I can paint on top. If I did want it more green, I'll let that dry and I'll come in with my paint pen. And that just adds to another layer. It just adds another layer for me to work on top of, which is I really enjoy doing. I think it just adds more character to your piece. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was a mistake. It's more just a layer. And I think that's the beauty of like mixed media art. I'm definitely simplifying things, especially at the front here with these grasses. But I love it to add on little scribbles and things. And I just slowly work in more and more texture. Thank you, Danielle. Yes, I'm really proud of reaching this number, and like mostly I see it as like my community, and it's so nice to be able to speak to you all, and like these lives are really, really lovely. And we do these in my Patreon community, and it's just a really nice way to connect with people. And as much as I worry that suddenly my artistic talent's going to disappear completely when I go live and people are watching, even if it does, it's really nice to you know, speak about those problems with other artists, and like we all get it, you know. So that's always really nice. So you can see how this is sort of the new layer, as messy as I am, has added a lot of depth, even in these like grassy bushes here. So I prefer this already from like the first layer that we done. I think I might make this a bit more blue. I've got to be careful now to not get my dirty hands on the sky though. I'm just going to get a blue pencil. Absolutely love the contrast and the vibrant colours. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, my style is definitely quite vibrant, but yeah, I just really like working that way. Now this bit I probably should have done before I added on the clouds, but like I say, there's no method in my madness. so I kind of just go with what I want to add. And these are the Derwent Inktense pencils again, so I'm just sort of dipping it in water. I might use a clean brush to smudge that out rather than my dirty hands. Okay, let's see. Curious to know, what do I do with pieces I don't like? I'm an absolute beginner artist and dislike all my mistakes. I don't know whether to cover them up or tear them out of my sketchbook. So my suggestion would be to never tear out your sketchbook. I have never done that because when in like, I don't know, even a year's time, you can look back on your sketchbook and see those ones that you didn't like and see how much you've improved. Whereas if you don't have that to like look back on, you won't be able to see your progress as easily. So for me, I would suggest definitely don't take it out your sketchbook. And then with things that I don't like, because it's in a sketchbook, I just turn the page and I move on. Like I say, I can come back to it and see my improvement in the future, and also I can learn from it. So even if you hate it completely, there's things that you'll have learned from, and like the bad art you create is just as important as the good art. And even if it's a mistake in your eyes, I bet that you've learned something. So like maybe you didn't like that color palette that you used, or maybe you didn't like the way that you applied that paint, and so the next time that you create, you'll have learned from that. So I would say that they're good things. Mistakes are good things. It's actually what people want to make, because we learn the most from them. We want to be creating good art. So it's not a bad thing. So I would say, I know it's really hard, especially if you're frustrated with what you're creating, but push through. Don't get rid of it, because I think like in the future you'll be really glad to look back on them and see, actually, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought, but also look how good I am now. Not in like a big-headed way, but just in a growth way, you know. So I hope that helps. Okay, I keep going off and on with the light, so hopefully that's not too annoying. I can never get the blue to look right on this camera, but it probably didn't need that up in the sky, but it has added more texture, so. Oh, thank you. Glad you could come as well. I'm just going to take a drink of my tea before it gets cold. Okay, as a time check, we've got 18 minutes 40 seconds left. So I feel like that's still a good amount of time. Now, there's like a touch of purple in this like path and in around here. So I don't have a purple paint pen, but I'm debating whether to use my Derwent Inktense. Maybe I'll see how this looks. Oh, you're welcome. An interesting perspective. I guess I'm just too much of a perfectionist and need to chill. Yeah, I totally understand, because like I think we all want our artwork to be great, especially at first. Okay, I'm going to put the light back on. But it's a process, and we kind of have to keep working to get to a point where we're happy. And even like after however many years, there's still pieces that I won't like. But like it's impossible to be perfect all the time. Like same in real life. So why should your art be any different? Yeah. I know it's really easy to say and difficult to implement. But I would say just try and like give yourself a break, you know, like I'm sure actually what you're doing is wonderful, and I often find if I hate a piece immediately, I'll actually like it when I come back to it. And Emma Carlisle always gives the advice of, if you hate something, find 3 things that you actually do like. Maybe you don't like the composition, but you really like the texture down here, or you really like the way this orange blends with this pink, or you really like some of the mark making. It doesn't have to be a great piece overall, but there might be something that you're able to find to make you feel a little bit better about it. Oh, hi Tara. Am I uploading the live stream on YouTube later? Yes, I am. Yep, this will be available as a replay. Immediately after this, it will go onto YouTube if you did want to watch it back. So I've put down my ink tints here. I'm just going to blend this one out a little bit. But I really like the contrast between the green with this purple. So I'm happy with that. Just going to add a bit more. I think the colour palette's really nice. That's showing up glary on the lighting, but there we go. And I think I might add a bit back here. I think I'll come in later with my near colours as well. This is looking quite pink on camera, but pink, like I usually add on my pink and my lilacs, like the sky blue near colour that I love, afterwards, and I find that that adds a lot to my piece. That's always the bit I really enjoy doing, but generally I'll do that as the last layer. I'm just going to add some more colour in the sky before I then draw and paint on my tree. Did you get to try out different art materials lately? Yes, so my new obsession are these paint pens. That's a new material, and also the dough and ink tent blocks. So I do have a video coming soon all about those. So that should be hopefully this month, because the other thing I've been playing with are these really big XL ones, which have been amazing for putting on and adding texture. So hopefully that will be coming soon. It depends on timelines and things, but I've been really enjoying those. So I'm just adding on some more pink into the sky. It's very bright here. Yeah, me too. The problem is, like, I'd have as many art supplies as I could, but it's obviously space and budget are a restriction, sadly. But I do find, like, people love hauls, and I'd love to do them more often. But alas, in an ideal world, maybe. Katie, who is my favourite painter? Oh, that's a really good question. I can answer illustrator straight off the cuff with Isabelle Arsenault. I absolutely love her work. And then painter, I did a project with Tate last year, and I absolutely love Cézanne. I've always liked his work, but when I did that project, it really helped me to like fall in love with his work, and I really had to get to know him. I did so much research for that, and so Paul Cézanne is definitely up there with someone I really admire, and it's really it inspired me at the time to not just paint a scene once. I was always very much of tick, you know, I've painted this lake, I'm done. I don't want to paint that again, especially because of I generally work quite quickly, and because I get bored quickly, I don't want to paint it again. So he really showed me a different way of seeing it, because he had subjects that he would paint over and over again, and so that really helped. So yeah, I'd say Paul Cézanne for that one. I'm just playing around, layering. As I said, I kind of just come in with different things depending on what I think the painting needs. Do I want that down here? I might pull that pink down. And I do need to keep an eye on the time. We've got 12.5 minutes left. So I think what I'm going to do next is paint in that tree, because I don't want to do that too last minute. I'm going to put in the tree that's here in the middle. Oh, and I also want to do those fence posts. So I'll do the tree first, because again, that's behind the fence. So that comes next. Now I'm happy with the sky, I can work on top of it. Lately, you've been enjoying using colour stick pastels from Aptly Kids. I've not heard of that brand, even though they're typically designed for kids. Honestly, I find kids art materials really fun to use. I've got the Stabilo Woody pencils, which are the really, really chunky pencils, and they're very fun to use, and they're for children, but they're great fun. I haven't heard of that brand though. Oh, hi Rebecca, you made it. I have your question actually, which you put on Instagram, so I'll answer that now you're here. The question was, what is my favourite white pencil? And that's a really easy one for me to answer because I definitely have one which I reach for time and time again. The question is, will I find it in my pencil pot? Oh, here it is. My favourite white pencil is this one. This is the Derwent Drawing Chinese White. It's 7200. And this is like my go-to. It's a really nice white. It goes over things really well. This is still wet, so it's not going to do great, but this is definitely my favourite white. So I hope that helps. Did I miss a question? No, okay, all good. So I'm going to continue putting in my tree. I'm going to use my paint pens again because they give a really nice smudgy texture. And I'm just I'm not going to put in every single leaf. I'm just going to suggest the shape. Gosh, I'm making such a mess today. These are super messy. I don't even have any like wipes with me, but we're just going to go with it. I do feel like with the whole texture thing that I've been exploring lately and stuff, I'm sort of entering a new little phase of art in my style, because style is a question that comes up a lot on how to get or find your style. And I think just creating and evolving, so like a style isn't a one and done. I think my style is constantly evolving and changing, and I think that's really exciting. And I can feel that my art is currently evolving into the next step for me, which is really fun, and I'm excited to see what happens next because I don't know. And I feel like we're coming to that point where I'm adding on new textures, I'm adding on new things, and so my style's sort of working with that. Such chunky markers you've not used before. You like how I smudge them with my finger? Yeah, the paint pens are really fun because they do stay quite wet because they're acrylic. They don't dry immediately, means I can smudge, and that's why my hands look like this, which they don't normally. If I was just doing a gouache painting, they would be really super clean. But it definitely gives an extra texture, which I really like. So I'm just going to put in the trunk. Ideally it would be a bit drier, but we don't have the luxury of waiting for this to dry at the moment. Just try and grab a dark brown pencil. Now I've probably made that a bit thick, so again I can just fix it. I can come in with my paint pen and thin it out, just as an extra layer. He looks a little bit lonely there. There's a tree over there which I didn't notice before. Let's add him in. And because they are so chunky, especially these ones, it means that I'm a bit looser with my marks. I'm not like getting too tight because I physically can't because they're so thick. So that's a really nice way to include like looseness in my work. That is not the best tree in the world. That's all right. There's one next to him as well. I think I might just. Do I add in another one? Sure. I find that I take more risks when I'm on a live. When I'm like with my patrons, it's like they'll egg me on and then I can blame them. Okay. So that's some shading underneath these. And then I can come in with my fence posts at the front here. Oh, thank you. I always worry when I'm like creating live that it won't turn out as I would like, and like I never really know what it will turn out like because I don't plan or sketch in advance, so usually it's quite a nice surprise. Time wise, we've got 6.5 minutes left. Oh, good question. I had this on Instagram as well. I don't know if it was you on there who asked. Corinne asked as well. Does Mitch also do art in some form? No. I told him that he had this question, and he just laughed because Mitch doesn't have painting. Well, I love it when he paints with me, which is quite rare. Sometimes he does little doodles and I absolutely love them, but he would say absolutely no. He is not an artist. He is an engineer, so he has a lot of intelligence and I have the creativity, but no, he doesn't. When he does, I absolutely love it. I also had a question. Do I listen to music? That was from Maeve. When I create, and the answer is yes. Generally I'm always listening to something. I usually have my headphones in. Usually I'll be singing along very, very badly, and I really love like musical theatre, so it's generally going to be like the Hamilton soundtrack or like the Moana soundtrack or something along those lines. So that is why I don't do ASMR content, because there is no way that should go on the internet. Which is why I generally do voiceovers, because the actual soundtrack when I'm editing is, you really don't want to hear that. Okay. Oh, hi Debs. Joined late, super busy painting and now you're done. Oh, fun. Now you can type. Thank you a lot for doing this. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're learning stuff. That's great. Katria, the engineer artist combo, same with you and your fiance, and so many artists. Oh, how interesting. It's super sweet he wants to paint with me. Yeah, it's really nice, and when I can convince him to, it's really nice because like they come to it from a totally different point than us, and I find that really refreshing, and so I want to try and like convince him to do it more, because I just think that they come to it with a totally fresh perspective. But that's so cool that your fiance is an engineer as well. Oh, Danielle's got an artist and a computer guy there. I find that's quite a common one with like IT and stuff. I wonder what it is. That's really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to put in this line of fencing over here. We've got 3.5 minutes left, so leaving it a little bit late for this bit. I'm going to see if it works with this Posca. Might be a little bit. You can see I need to flip the nib. I'm just going to roughly put it in. Kind of not looking at the reference at this point. Just sort of going with where it works in my painting. And then I'll add on a pencil. Just grab one quickly. Oh, he's into photography. Oh, nice. Yeah, Mitch isn't into that either. But he plays a lot of like games and stuff, and I think that there's a lot of creativity in that. So I'm just going to try and show a bit of perspective with this. And I'll probably give us a little bit of time at the end of this to add on any final bits. So don't panic if you haven't put everything you wanted in. We've got a little bit more time. And also you can come back to it, or you can continue working whilst I move on to our next reference. Whatever feels good for you. So these are looking a little bit odd. Let's darken it up a little bit. And then I'm going to add in some lines. How did I come to my career as an illustrator? So I went to university and I studied graphic design, and I was a graphic designer in agencies and in-house for just under 10 years, but I'd always done illustration alongside it. I opened up my Etsy shop when I finished university, and I'd always posted on Instagram with my art and things, but my day job was as a designer because I wanted to have like a degree and get like a job through that rather than going straight freelance as an illustrator. But it was always my dream, but as a very risk averse person, I didn't ever think I'd do it. And then I got to a point where I was quite unhappy in the agency I was with. It was after COVID, and it felt like a time to make the jump. And so obviously I'd built up like a few clients. I have some agencies I used to work with who would come to me and commission me as an illustrator, which was really helpful when I first started, to have those connections. And then I opened a Patreon, and like I've not looked back since. I'm so glad that I did it in that way because of the connections, and like I learned so much as a graphic designer, and like it's helped me learn Photoshop and how to use a lot of tools that maybe I wouldn't know if I just come straight into it as an illustrator. And I think that's a really strong part of my like portfolio and skill set. So yeah, I was basically a graphic designer, and then I became an illustrator based from that. And just like that, our 45 minutes is up. I'm not finished, so I'm going to continue, and you're welcome to finish with me. There's just a few little things I want to add. I know Omar Wynn calls this faff time, so we're going to just faff about and finish this off until I move on. I'm just going to start adding in a few different colours. You're welcome. I want to like show some of this lighting, so I'm adding in this. This is the orangish yellow near colour, just to show that sort of sunset's reaching these front blades of grass. And then I also want to make this look a little bit less floaty. This is looking a little bit odd, so I'm just going to come in with my. There we go. That looks a little bit less like they're floating in midair now. And then I'll come in with some lines. I'm just using luminance pencils here. This is it feels quite a lot of texture. It feels kind of messy, not necessarily in a bad way. Just feels like quite a messy painting, but that's probably because of all the textures and things. And I hadn't warmed up today, which I don't know if that was a smart thing to do before coming on live, but I'm pretty pleased with how this one's turned out. I'm just gonna, I always finish with my coloured pencils and near colours. Just gonna add on a few darker tones. Just add on the last bits of contrast. I was going to add some flowers here, but I forgot. So, because although they're not on the reference, I think it would still look nice with a bit of colour here at the front. But those 45 minutes went really, really quickly. If you're painting along, how did you get along? Have you finished? Are you going to finish it later? Are you finishing it off with me? I think I'm almost done. I might add on that colour I mentioned earlier. This is the sky blue near colour. I do have a lot of purple tone at the front, so it doesn't feel like it needs it as much. But this is like my little signature style, I feel like, of adding in this pop of colour. Okay, I'm just going to grab I promise I'm almost done. I'm just going to use my light cobalt blue Neocolor as well over the top there. I will take a picture of this one because the blues never come out on camera. So I will put a picture on my Instagram anyway after this live stream. But we do have one more reference left. I didn't have a set time for this, so if you do need to go, totally fine. This will be on a replay, so you can watch it later. I might fix this line later as well because it's a little bit. I didn't want a super halved line, so I might need to fix that later. Very bright, vibrant landscape, but I think that turned out okay. I feel like I've captured that sort of soft lighting, which is really nice. Our next reference is a very fun chicken, and I just want to go a little bit wild with texture on this one. So this one felt a little bit more controlled. Oh, Christine's running to a work meeting now. I'm so glad. Oh, I'm glad you could be here, Christine. I hope the meeting goes okay. I'm glad you could listen in as well. Thank you for coming. I'm just going to move over on this side, and I'm going to use the Derwent Inktense blocks so you can see how I use those. I also use them in the YouTube video that's coming this Sunday as well. But our next reference is this little guy. Again, I'm going to up the colours and the saturation. It's got some like green on those tail feathers, which I really want to include. But this is the material I'm going to be using for these. So I've got the XL blocks, and these are kind of scattered around my desk now, but these are the standard Inktense blocks. And again, I'm just going to mix it up with my paint pens. I'm not going to use gouache on this one. Oh, you're painting along, that's so fun. I'm glad. And if you're watching on replay and if you're watching now and you want to share your artwork, please do tag me on Instagram, because I'd really love to see the artwork that you're creating whilst on this live. Okay, so I'm going to just get stuck in. Just mix up. And I'll start with a base. So there's a lot of white on this chicken. So let's start. Just turn off my light, and you can see a little bit of the white here, but again, no sketch for me. I'm just going to try and get his body shape down. Now, it would be better if I had like a square sketchbook for this one, but maybe I could add some flowers in the foreground. I'm going to add in some texture here. Oh, Christina's art supplies are all packed away, so it's a basic HB pencil. It's always good to go back to basics. It's something that I don't do enough, actually. I don't think that's a bad thing, and hopefully it's still just as fun. So I tend to, oh, it has gone really dark. I tend to not use black very much in my work. It would only be for like this. For dark shades and creating shadows, I tend to use the opposite colour to make it darker. If I'm doing like a really dark green, I'll add a red. So things like that. I'm going to use my Posca as well. That might mix with the Inktense as well. But one of the things that I really love to add on top of the Inktense is obviously the water, and I've got a little spray bottle which works really, really well. So let's add in some of these green tones. I'm going to pretend that there's more green on here than there is, because I want to use more fun colours. And like, you can mix up the colours on your reference, it doesn't have to be exact, so don't ever feel like you can't. And I think that's something that I learned throughout my illustration, like journey so far is that you know, I can mix things up. I don't have to keep them as they are in the reference. Sometimes it's a bit more fun if you don't. Okay, maybe I'll add a bit of blue down here as well. So just bring in some colours which I can't necessarily see. Okay, so the very basic shapes there, and then I've got a spray bottle somewhere. My desk is such a mess at this point. I've just sort of shoved everything aside. Let me see if I can find it. This is the thing, like, if I was on a timer, oh here it is, I'd be like rushing, and when you need something you can't find it. But just going to spray that on the page. And again, the Royal Talons isn't great for wet medium, so I don't want to add too much. But I'm just going to start mixing those together. Sarah asks, is that an ivory or light yellow post? Oh, you mean Posca paint pen? Yes, this was the ivory. This is the ivory in the 8mm chisel shaped nib. I do also have the beige, but the ivory is a lot more like a light yellow, I'd say. So I'm just going to, you can really see the pigments coming, like they become a lot more vibrant. I really just want to have fun with the texture here, so okay, I'm getting a bit of a dirty brush, so I'm going to stop there with that. But I can work on top of it. Obviously the page is still wet, and you can really see how it softens the like material, which is very fun to use. Come in here. Like when you're using them dry, it feels very different to actually when I use them over wet paper. It's such a different feel. Do I blend make my own acrylic markers? Yes, so let me just grab them. These ones are, I haven't mixed this one up yet, but these are the Montana markers. There's a video on my Patreon where I filled them and shared how I did that, and I've been absolutely loving them. I obviously have got other acrylic markers, and there's going to be a YouTube video all about those at some point, which I haven't filmed yet, but I filled them on my Patreon, and yeah, they've really been like a game changer for me recently. They make things feel really easy, and I think most of that comes down to the fact that I could mix my own colours, and I knew that I would use those colours, because a lot of the time the markers aren't in my ideal shades, and so just being able to make them work for me was a massive plus. So I definitely recommend it, but it is a bit of an investment. Oh, there's some pink on this. So like when this thing happens, that's great. I actually really like that. It's like a happy accident, as King Bob Ross would say. Happy little accidents, happy little chicken. So I'm not mad about that. I really like that pink. I don't know if I would have thought about that before, so that's great. I'm just going to use this one to add on his little legs. Now this is a very messy page. I don't know that that is very accurate. Let's see if that's a bit better. And I'm really looking forward to adding in his face. That will make a big difference. So let's put in his little beak here. Turn off the light. No, I think it's better with it on. So I'm going to grab this Derwent Inktense block, and like if I don't get it in the exact right place, I think I can just cover it up and try again. But when I add water to this, it will make a big difference. It probably would have helped if I'd sketched this one first. I do find it a little easier with animals for trying to get it right. I've just got a water brush from Derwent here. And then I can neaten up his beak with coloured pencil once this is dried, because at the moment his beak is a little bit squared off. Hi Christine, that's so cool. Your meeting got cancelled. It's meant to be. It's like they knew. Like you'd rather be here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, he's really fun. I'm enjoying drawing him. So the shape isn't necessarily correct. This is probably a bit too dirty. But as I let that dry and work into it, we can make it cleaner, I think. And like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Not like the people on your Instagram might not see the reference anyway, so you can pretend that it's supposed to look like this. That's the beauty of like being an artist, is it doesn't have to look exactly like the reference. There is no timer on this one, so I'm just going to keep going until I'm done, but the references are linked down below if you want to continue in your own time. I'm just going to check if I had any more questions I haven't answered. So I had Kezia and Ricardo ask for advice for people and artists who just started, and basically how to start as an illustrator. And my biggest advice would just be to start, just to go for it, share your work. I know a lot of people are afraid at first, and like I understand, but people won't know or see it if you don't share it. And it does get easier the more that you share, and use your platforms to build a community, and like connect with other artists. And like I found so many friendships on Instagram whilst I was, establishing myself, and it's so nice to like grow with them. So start by that. It's surprising the amount of opportunities that you can get from like social media and stuff, but I think the biggest thing that's obvious is when you're creating for you, and when you're creating for other people. And I think that it's really important for you to, if you want to continue, you have to be creating work for you. And it's a really easy trap to go in, and I know that I've fallen into it many times, but I have to like have a word with myself, check back in with myself, and tell myself to create what I want to create. And I think that shows in the work, because otherwise you'll burn out really, really quickly, and that's not a place that you want to be. So if it's coming from a place of joy, I think that helps massively. So make sure that you're creating what you want, because I think that's a big important factor. And like, to just keep going, it can be really difficult. You don't have any like say over the algorithm that will do what it wants, but if you're creating work that you really love anyway and you're sharing it just because you love it, I think that helps. And I also know it can get a little bit disheartening when you've put loads into a piece and it doesn't seem to be getting the recognition that you think it should, but just keep going, because you honestly don't know what will be the one that sort of takes off. And so the more that you create, the more chances that you've got for that. So I'm just adding in loads of extra colours that I can't necessarily see on this chicken. I would have loved to go bigger. I've gone quite small on this guy. I think he could have gone bigger, but I feel like on like a really big A2 piece of paper this would be really fun. But I don't have any of that, but maybe that's a challenge for another day. I'm just trying to work out what else I want to add to this. I had grand ideas in my head for this chicken and he hasn't really worked out as I expected him to. But I think that's just always the way. I am going to add in a suggestion of ground at the bottom. I'm just trying to find my pink pencil. I also get a lot of questions about storing my pencils this way, and like breaking nibs and things. I don't ever find it's an issue. I can't find the pencil I want, but generally it's easier for me to store this way because the luminants have the colours on the ends and it's harder to see the colour I want by the lead. So that's why I store them that way round. Oh, here it is. But I find that it's not really a problem. It doesn't break my leads any. Like they're really strong lead and stronger than the Prismacolor that I used to use. So like it's not really an issue for me that they break because I don't find that they do. So yeah, that's why I store them that way, just because it's easier to grab in a hurry, and when I'm usually working really quickly it's helpful. So this chicken isn't turning out exactly how I want, but let's hope that adding in maybe a bit more right up here, and then I'll add in his little eye. I think that will help. It's quite a dirty background, so I might come in later and add in things at the front here. Let's see if I can do that now actually. So I've got these like Inktense blocks which aren't necessarily the colour that I use, so I just sort of mix them together. And like the same with the yellow, I can layer that in. You can also grate these, which is really fun. But it works really well on like a big scale. And then I'm going to grab a brush and I'll just start mixing it straight on the page. I don't tend to put this in a palette. I like to just do it straight on my sketchbook. Sketches and Scrubs asked, do I have any tips on growing and nurturing a Patreon? I have a Ko-fi as an equivalent and brainstorming the direction. So I found that my Patreon grew more and like quickly when I worked out what they wanted. Like there's definitely content that I found people resonated more with, and so I kind of took that as feedback of, okay, I'll do more of that. And that's when I started doing more lives, because I think that really helps with the sense of community and like to just have people to draw with. And when I started creating more content like that, I found that it was easier to grow. So I think it depends on the content that your audience would like, and then rolling with that, and continually like listening to what they're asking for, and generally what I think would do well might not, but if I listen to what they're asking for, then that massively helps. But it can be difficult, and like it's not necessarily anything that you're even doing wrong. Sometimes it's just you know, people can't find you, so it's constantly a case of like marketing and talking about it more than you think, because that's always a really difficult one, of like feeling like we're talking about it too much but actually we're not. If that makes sense, hopefully that helps. But it is really tricky, like just with like promoting and like being a business. It's something that I still struggle with. So this guy kind of looked like he was floating a little bit, so I'm just adding on a suggestion of ground here. with my paint pen. Very dirty hands. I'll come in with my Posca as well. I need to go over his legs because, as you can see, this was not planned. But I'm enjoying like going with the flow. I kind of want that to like fade upwards because I don't know how to finish it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do up here. I feel like it needs like a really strong graphic colour or something. But it's quite fun to just like go with the flow, and I don't often do that, but actually it's really fun, and like I find that there's a lot of play there, and that's what I'm trying to focus on, is the playful aspect of it all. Let's have a look. Yeah, no, I don't think you do. I think like however much we feel like we're talking about it is still not enough. That's what I get from a lot of like marketing podcasts and things, is actually people aren't getting annoyed at all. It's just what we're thinking that we're doing. But obviously we're very much in the middle of this marketing, so like we're seeing everything we're putting out, whereas everybody else isn't seeing every single piece of marketing you're doing. It's just you, so that's probably why you feel like you're talking about it too much, when actually some people still won't know about it. I'm just going to grab a dark indigo pencil to add in his little eye. Little guy. Maybe that's not big enough. Maybe I will get an Inktense pencil, because I want this to be really dark. This is called Outliner. Let's see how intense he is. There we go. I don't know how to finish this chicken, but he's looking quite fun. He's a happy little chap. I just don't know how to finish the background. Oh, Julie asked, am I ever moving to kids lit? I don't know. I'm not putting it as a definite no. I'm definitely still, I'm open to it, but it's not something that I'm actively working towards. But we'll see if the opportunity might come up. I don't know, I've never really seen myself as a kid lit illustrator. I think I really need to work on like my drawing skills a bit more, in terms of like drawing people and children and narrative, like including more narrative in my work. So I don't think I'm ready yet, but we'll see if I ever feel like I want to move into that space. Then I might start working on those things, like purposefully. Okay, so I don't know whether to add in, I might add in a blue background. Let's just use my paint pen. I've got this one. I'm just going to mix it up. Oh, thanks, Erica. I will take off the reference in a minute as well, so you can see the full spread. I'm just going to add this in. I need to mix up more, so it's coming out a bit streaky. But it felt like he wasn't finished without something back here. And I don't know what's happening in this scene, if there's like, well, I guess in the reference he's got like little blocks of colour behind. See if I can suggest it. Just so that it's not a plain blue. I don't know if I like that, but it was a good test. And like, this is a, like I keep saying, this is a working sketchbook, so it doesn't have to be perfect. This is the point where I have to know when to stop as well, which is really tricky. I don't think that's ever an easy thing to do or answer. But like stepping up and like taking a break can sometimes help to see what we need to add, or if we need to add anything. Because sometimes the answer would be no, I think this is fine as it is. I don't know that it is, but I think I'll need to step back and then I'll come back to it later and decide, because I think it needs something else. I just don't know what yet. So I think I'm going to call it there. Maybe I'll add to this, and if I do, I will share it on my Instagram. But that's been very, very fun. I hope that you've enjoyed it as well if you have been painting along. I'm just going to take off the reference on screen. If you are still working on it, it is linked down below. But this is what our final spread looks like. Let me move my water jug. The chicken didn't turn out how I expected, neither did the landscape, but the landscape I think was better than I thought it might be, and the chicken is worse. So we've got a balance there. Let's add some light here. I had a lot of fun painting with you. I hope you've enjoyed watching along and painting along with me as well. Thank you so much for being part of this community, of whether you're here on YouTube and following along, or if you're on Instagram. It's been such a joy to build and like to grow it, and I'm really grateful to have such a nice and welcoming community. So thank you so much for being a part of it and keeping me company during today. Oh, you love both, thank you. No problem at all. As always, like if you want more content from me, I am on Patreon if you're not part of that. We're a really close-knit community. It's really fun, and we do drawing sessions like this over on my Patreon. But yeah, if you have any questions about it at all, then please do let me know. And if you've painted along, please do share your work. I really would love to see what you've created, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Yeah, I will see you all really soon. Bye everybody.